stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you guys for coming and to our workshop tonight. We are gonna be discussing our insurance first, so I'm gonna let you guys take over.
Sure, I'll have Jamie introduce.
Okay, so this afternoon, we had our bid opening for our property insurance at 2 o'clock, which was held here at the district office. We had 2 companies submit a bid, and so we've asked them to come in tonight to just kind of explain their bid and answer any questions that you guys might have. So we're gonna start first with the School Risk Retention Program, SRRP, with Ryan Doyle and Terry Sterling. We're gonna have them stay over here because they're connected to the Zoom, but Ray, when it's your turn to present, if you would move up to the.
And I can go up there,
Oh, you can?
Yeah,
Perfect, then that would be great.
because this is just gonna accommodate Ryan, so if everybody has copies of the materials, that's fine.
Yeah, so we're gonna just do a 30-minute
Yep.
kind of time frame
Yep.
to summarize, if that's okay?
Okay. Yeah, so if you're good with coming up, that would
Yeah,
be great.
that would be fine.
Perfect.
Great. Let's see. First of all, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. As Jamie said, I'm Terry Sterling. I'm with the SERP, we call it affectionately, which is sponsored by the Wyoming School Board Association. So I'm actually the Director of Financial Services for the School Board Association, and Mr. Farmer wanted me to send his regards. And he said you were all good people and you'd be nice to me tonight, so let's not make you a liar, okay? All right, we're gonna start, you should have received a document, Introduction to the School Risk Retention Program. It was a PowerPoint presentation, so we're gonna start with that. And I'm gonna try to kind of, given that we only have the half hour, you probably noticed there's a ton of information. I'm not gonna try to cover all of that. We're gonna try to keep it sort of at a 30,000-foot level, and then we'll kind of get down a little bit farther into the weeds. But there's a lot of weeds, so we'll see if we can kind of clear through that. But you'll notice on the first page, so SERP highlights, a property insurance program created for schools by schools. And I guess just let me start, we are not an insurance company. We are a partially self-funded pool of schools that have came together to provide property casualty benefits to our member districts. As I mentioned, this program is sponsored by the Wyoming School Board Association. It was started in 2003 during a time when the property casualty market within the state was a little rough. School districts were being canceled, they were being non-renewed, it was difficult to find coverage. And so my predecessor and a group of schools got together and said, how can we do this different? And that different was SERP, School Risk Retention Program. Right now we have 29 members that have joined forces to enjoy the strength benefits of this risk-sharing program. It's often referred to as a protected self-insurance program. Partially self-funded is another term you may hear for it. And we'll get a little bit more into exactly what that means as we kind of progress here through the presentation. But essentially, if you think about it kind of visually, is we take your premiums, your allocation amounts, and we put them into a bank. And from that bank, then we pay some insurance, we have reinsurance that covers, and again, we'll explain more about that, but essentially it is the pool pays for the first level, then there's reinsurance that pays for the second level. So we take the money out of this bank account, we pay for the reinsurance, we pay for the claims. If there's a claim that falls within our retention level or our deductible, we pay for those claims out of our own money. And then there's administration costs, obviously, to run this type of program, because as you're looking at it, it's like, well, this sure looks a lot like an insurance company, but technically we are not. One of the other benefits is that we create our own coverage document. From my very first bullet point up there was created for schools by schools. All right, we are not an off-the-shelf program. We are not an off-the-shelf benefit. The schools got together, all 29 of them get together, and they decide what we want to cover, what we don't want to cover. And so we have that flexibility, but one of the things that we do is we take advantage of the Wyoming Governmental Claims Act. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but from kind of a 30,000 foot level, that's just a little bit about that. Any questions? And I guess as I go through this, oftentimes I guess I'd rather maybe that this is a discussion as opposed to a lecture. And if you're kind of like me and you go, whoa, squirrel moment, I have a question, please don't feel bad if you have that squirrel moment and you have to ask that question. I would encourage it. All right, so any questions kind of on the highlights of a little bit about us? All right, as we kind of move on, those are the member districts. There's 29 of them. You'll notice they're located throughout the entire state, all corners of the state, ranging from Park counties to the Crook counties to the Uinta counties, down here in Laramie County, so literally all four corners of the state and lots of them in between. If you have any questions about us, I guess I would encourage you to contact one of these districts and say, tell me about them. I obviously am gonna, I'm pretty proud of this program. Brian's proud of this program. We're gonna tell you how great it is. But these folks here probably would be the ones that I would recommend that you give them a call and ask how we do. All right, just a little bit as far as our negotiating power when we go out into the reinsurance market. Next page you can see we've got almost $2.8 billion worth of total insured values. So we're not just a little fly-by-night program here. 28,000 students, almost 1,300 vehicles that we insure. So we've got a fair amount of property, vehicles, and teachers and kids that we cover throughout the state. Part of that, as I described, some of our partners, we put the money in the bank, we have to pay different people to do different things. The pool administration, that's the School Board Association, that's my job. I'm actually the plan administrator for this program. Essentially what that means is I'm sort of like the coach. I can't block, I can't tackle, I can't throw a pass, but it's my job to make sure that I have the folks that can do that. Third-party administrators, claims associates. We have the choice to decide who's going to pay our claims. We're not tied to a certain carrier, we're not tied to ABC companies, so then we have to use ABC companies' claims folks. We want our claims folks to understand that this program is to help pay claims, not find a way to deny claims. And so they're really, the claims administrator is there to help our member districts get claims processed. Not throw obstacles up, not try to find an exclusion somewhere where we can deny it, quite the opposite. We make a real effort to find a reason to pay a claim. Example, we had a hail claim that came from one of our districts that was like 10 or 11 years old. We ended up writing a check for upwards of $500,000 for this hail loss. But we went through and made sure that there had been a hail loss. We did everything we could to help find a reason that this should be covered. Loss control services. One of the things that we're a big believer in is, the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So every year we'll have somebody come out, they'll walk through your district, and you will not believe some of the things that we see out in the districts. When you walk into, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but when you walk into shops, when you walk into art rooms, when you open up the supply door and there's chemicals that shouldn't necessarily be there, there's a barrel of oil that shouldn't be there, our folks will walk through and hopefully give you some ideas of some ways to avoid that loss. How can we help, save you the pain of a lawsuit or a claim. And that's part of your premium. There's no extra charge. We just built that in as part of the premium. We have designated legal counsel, Copenhaver Cab Kitchen in Colpitty. Tracy Copenhaver, he's been here a long time. I have to preface that we have him right now. His wife seems to think that he should retire, so we'll see how long we have him. But we don't get Tracy. We'll definitely have Scott, and we'll be in great hands with Scott as well. And last but certainly not least, on the big giant screen there, Brian Doyle is our broker. He works with Gallagher, one of the largest brokerage firms, I think, in the world, Ryan. You guys are big, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but what that affords us is when we go out and we shop reinsurance, we've got the weight of Gallagher and the knowledge and the expertise of Ryan behind us to help guide those waters. And at the time when you run into a bumpy claim or something, to have them on our team is definitely, he's the big man up front blocking for everybody, so. All right, moving along, any questions there? I'm sorry. All right, moving along, the benefits of pool risk. And you can see the different blocks there, but just to kind of highlight a couple of them. When you come into this program, you become the owner of it. You're not renting it, you're not borrowing it, you're an owner in this program. You become part of the CERT family. Which then affords greater control. One of your representative of Plat One will sit on our board of trustees. We are governed by a board of our participants. When's the last time that you had any say in any insurance program that you've ever bought, whether it's personal, whether it's professional, or whatever? You sit and you govern. I advise that board, but at the end of the day, and Jamie can probably attest for this, most of them are business managers and they have opinions and thoughts of their own. There's some pretty smart people there and they have different ideas than perhaps I would or Ryan would, but at the end of the day, you have some control in this program because you participate in the governance of it. Strength in numbers. I showed you some of the numbers there as far as when we go out to market. We're a pretty sizable group and that definitely helps. And down in the right-hand corner, potential cost savings. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and Ryan's gonna dig a little bit more into the program structure. It's the little bar chart thing. And Ryan, if you wanna take it over.
Yeah, thanks, Terry, and thanks everyone for allowing me to join you here remotely. It's funny, I prefer me as a lineman. I think I'm a lineman since I was 6 years old playing football, so I used to that analogy hit home pretty well. But looking at the bar chart, this is the core property and liability coverage we have. We offer boiler and pollution, and we'll get into some of those other coverages, but this is really how the program is structured. You have $151 million for any one property claim that may come in on a blanketed basis across all your locations. Walking through a standard property claim, say it's a fire loss, it's going to be $10,000 for the district, and then CERF is taking on that next portion. That green box is a retention that CERF's taking on. And thinking of about 50,000 foot view, the easiest way for anybody to save money on their insurance is to raise your deductible. However, there's only so much you can raise while trying to fund for those numbers. Take on $1 million retention, or you look over to the right-hand side, a $200,000 retention on liability. That's very hard for a district to do individually. So as CERF, we've taken, being around since 2003, then started $1 million, but we've been taking slow, calculated amounts based on our membership, based on our exposures, and based on our experience. Because the more we're able to take on in that green box, the less money we're paying out to the insurance companies on those blue boxes in the reinsurance costs. So over the course of time, as you've been seeing, especially as Terry mentioned, this marketplace, this pool was formed in 2003, we're seeing some of those claims start to hit and entering in a very volatile marketplace where pooling across the country is becoming more applicable and more school districts or municipalities or counties, whoever it is, look at that pooling option. Pooling is not a foreign concept. About 80% of public entities across the country participate in some sort of cooling arrangement, whether it's for comp or P&C. So pooling's not uncommon, but we try to make it as easy for you from a member standpoint as possible. So from a member standpoint, it's going back to funding those deductibles, and unfortunately, we are in Wyoming, we do have wind hail. Our wind hail deductible is $50,000 per building. So it's not a percentage basis, it's not you don't know what the finite amount's gonna be depending on what hail hits what building or what the damages. We've been able to negotiate that down to $50,000 per building on wind hail, $10,000 for all other claims, and the auto physical damage is $5,000. And that's on a per occurrence basis. So if a hailstorm comes in, it's gonna be that one deductible per occurrence, from a physical damage standpoint for your auto. We fund for, as you'll see in the premium page, we allocate out 5 line of coverage. You're gonna see a portion of your costs are going to the property loss fund. So right now, $1.2 million that CERB takes on, and each member pays their fair share equity into that. If we don't have losses at the end of the year, that becomes surplus. We hang on to it for a year or two, 3 years, gauge, unreported, incurred but not reported losses. Then on the liability side, loss fund, again, using the tort immunities to our advantage and having our own coverage document really insulates us from a lot of nuisance claims, because you guys have great, working in other states, Wyoming has great immunities, and we want to take advantage of those when working on some liability claims. So same thing on liability, the only deductible we have is on the school board legal, $2,500. No deductible for GL, no deductible for sexual abuse, no deductible for auto liability. CERB takes on that $200,000. Then we have a $2 million per occurrence limit outside of things not subject to the Wyoming Governmental Claims Act. We take on the, CERB funds $421,000 a year, same concept there. Maybe a little bit longer tail, 3 to 5 years for liability for statute of limitations on some claims, and some other things in claims take longer to tail out. But once we have that available, that becomes surplus, that becomes CERB's money. Again, both these green boxes are sitting in those bank accounts that Terry mentioned. It's not coming to Gallagher. It's not going to an insurance company in Connecticut, in New York, or anywhere else, or in London. It's sitting right here in Wyoming, in earning interest in your name, in your dollars amounts, and you as a member get to vote how that's being used year in and year out. But from a property standpoint, you have $150 million per occurrence, at $10,000 deductible for all things outside of auto and hail. On liability, you have a $2 million per occurrence limit, and it's a $6 million aggregate per member. So that's the other thing too, it's a per member limit. So if one of those other, 29 members has a large loss, that's not going to affect your coverage, that's not going to affect your insurance coverage in any way, shape, or form. That's going to be these limits on a per member basis. So you have $6 million coverage from a liability standpoint outside of the tort that was protected by tort tax and tort immunities. Any questions on those coverages? We jump to the next slide. Next slide just kind of encompasses where your dollars are going right now. In the traditional insurance world, 100% of your dollars are premium dollars. They're going to the insurance company, they control everything, they make all the decisions on claim settlement, there's no losses, they pocket the premium, they build new skyscrapers in various high rises downtowns in various cities. CERB's different. We try to grow that green box as much as we can, because that's our dollars staying within CERB, using it to pay for claims, and the more that green box grows, the less that blue box shrinks. Again, less premium out the door, more money we're controlling and owning and dictating where those dollars are going year after year. So almost over a third of your premium is staying within the pool used to pay for claims that you have a chance to give back. And we'll highlight that here in a little bit as we get to the pricing page. You jump to the next portion, again, some of those highlighted some of the key areas. Right now, again, $10,000 per member deductible. On the information shared in the coverage summary, so their platform had a $25,000 called AOP deductible, all of their perils, and then a 2% per location of the value per location for wind hail. Certainly may negotiate that down to $50,000 on a per building basis, for wind hail. Liability, again, only $2,500 deductible, but we do a $2 million per occurrence limit and a $6 million aggregate for auto, general liability, school board legal, sexual abuse and molestation, all the liability coverages, employee benefits liability, all the liability coverages, schools need. And then it gets right behind our exclusive memorandum of coverage, and that's something we review every year. We take into consideration, we tweak it based on what we want to cover and don't want to cover, based on what's happening. If there's new legislation within the state, or we need to advise on something, we can build it into our coverage forms, as opposed to the insurance companies. Right now, you're seeing insurance companies not provide coverage for guns, or they're excluding sexual abuse on their excess liability policies, they're excluding traumatic brain injuries, whatever it may be. Insurance companies are dictating what they want to cover. Ours is the other way around with our memorandum of coverage. And then it's highlighted on the next slide. No, I'm sorry, I can't see it, so if there's a hand raised, please stop me. So the next claim just highlights that governmental claims act, in which we have the exemptions from the maximum liability we would pay for claims in those that fall under that Wyoming Government Claims Act. That's $250,000 per occurrence and $500,000 max. So the $2 million comes in more on the federal cases or cases that fall outside the Wyoming Governmental Claims Act. The next slide has the additional coverages. We include boiler machinery to the full limit of $150 million, crime coverage up to $250,000 per district per loss, $5,000 non-deductible. It also comes with inside and outside premises, counterfeit money, funds transfer fraud. There's about 7 different coverages included within the crime coverage at $250,000 per limit. We provided a coverage summary for you as well. In pollution, we have both first and third party coverage for pollution. So there's tank leasing, or as Terry mentioned, when we go into our science labs or a loss control visit, and we find gallons of mercury in the science lab. We actually had a member that had a mercury spill that caused significant amount of damage. So if there's any, we cover both first party and third party. So not only the cleanup within the school district, but also if someone were to sue because they got sick or some sort of bodily injury, what happened because of mercury spill or tank leakage into the soil, lead in the drinking water, which we've had a rash of claims in various states with lead in drinking water, and that all gets picked up by the pollution coverage for that standpoint. Cyber, you currently have a supplement thrown into cyber at $500,000, mainly for crisis management and liability. But things like cyber extortion was limited to $20,000 and some other perils. But we provide cyber for our members, all 29 of them. They have 17 different coverages included within that. We can quote you cyber. We would advise on quoting cyber, and we can get that policy covered and quoted before the 15th of January, which is your expiration date. We just need an actual cyber application to do so. Given the turnaround, we've provided this information and need information by this Monday. We cannot turn around quote in time, but once that application is completed, it'll take us 2 weeks or so to turn around a quote, so we can get that in place. If need be. The optional coverages as well too. We can always get higher limits if you felt like $2 million was insufficient. You can matches what you currently have right now. Higher cyber limits, we can go as high as you want. Foreign liability, if various goods come up. Active assailant coverage, active shooter coverage. We have a whole host of other coverages to an accident outside those provided. Any you're worried about bonds, all that stuff can be placed through us as well too. And things that if you're interested in, maybe other school districts are interested, we can get a group policy for that and get that discount and premium by buying in bulk. But that's all I really have from the PowerPoint. And we got about 5 minutes left, Terry.
So, okay. All right, we'll just quickly move on. You should have a document that I created that just shows the difference between us and the commercial insurance. And you can certainly read through that. Just a couple of highlights. The number one bullet point there is it's a guaranteed renewal. When you come into the program and you have a horrible claims year, you have big losses or whatever, we're not going to cancel you. You know, you're part of the family, so we'll offer you that renewal. I'm not going to lie and say it might not be real pretty wall. But you will have coverage. You won't have to worry about all of a sudden going, now what do we do? Let's see, governance, we talked a little bit about that. One of the other things too, I just wanted to touch on real quick, is we do our website, the SERP.org website is actually, it's very robust. It offers lots of training. Again, it's just part of your premium, a value add. Just as an example, all of our staff members need to take, bloodborne pathogen training. We just offer that through, it's a module within our training. So also as part of the program, you have access to that. Ryan, with that, if you want to jump into, I guess, the reason we're all here tonight, the pricing page.
Yeah, if you look at that pricing sheet, and hopefully it's all in front of you, and then the last page of that proposal that outlines some of the other coverages included in SERP, that last page of contribution summary. Again, this premium is broken down by coverage, by vendor, by line that you're contributing into. SERP renews on 7/1, July 1st. So we have your annual premium, comparing apples to apples. This would be your annual premium should you have joined July 1st. Your annual premium would have been $332,000. Since we don't have it, we would prorate you starting January 16th to June 30th, in which then we would renew the policies afterwards into next July 1st. But the nice part about SERP is every single line of these coverage has a different way in which we allocate it, in which we share with the membership, and it's voted upon each year. So you know how you're being allocated your premium and why your premium is being allocated that way. And you see some other options. We look at it. We try to make it fair and equitable for each member. So again, you as an owner, you have a say in where all your premium dollars are going and how they're being spent. So you have a say in how they are allocated out to you, from a premium standpoint. And it's something we review every single year and discuss with the board. And we've made changes. As the market's changed, as our loss history has changed and become different, we've tweaked it again, just trying to keep that fair and equitable premium and stability, meaning that stability and budgetable ability for SERP is what we try to do for each and every member. So effective, if you were to join, it'll be a prorated premium to start from January 16th to July 1st. And then we would do a new annual premium starting July 1st, 2024 to the 25 period. But there you see those variable costs, those are your contributions to the loss funds. So right now, from an annual basis, you have the opportunity, $140,000 of the $330,000 is staying within the pool, used to pay for claims that you have a chance to get back in some way, shape, or form long term, should you join the pool. And again, as a member, you get to vote as the check cut bad that used to offset future increases, that used to buy more loss control, or floor sweepers, whatever you want to do, your money. So of the premium, $140,000 of that is your money staying within the pool, used to pay for claims. We have a good loss year, we don't have claims, we're fine. If you have a large loss, you have $1 million loss, we're not tapping you for more money, your 140 is the contribution. The idea is of 29 members and now hopefully 30, not everyone's gonna have a bad loss year. It's a law large number. So the years you have a bad year, your members are bailing you out. If they have a bad year, you're bailing them out with your good loss history. So that give and take, that risk mindset that helps us get through these hard markets where insurance companies can non-renew you in 60-day notice, they can raise your deductibles, they can limit your coverage. We're here for the long term, for you with this pricing, with this coverage, hopefully, should you choose to join. Any questions on the pricing?
Did we make it?
About 2 minutes. 2 minute warning.
That was
Fourth
good.
quarter.
Alright,
Just one quick question, would there, and I wouldn't hold you to this, but can you give us an idea what the cyber could potentially run us?
Like a range, right?
Yeah, just a
so,
ballpark.
yeah, in anticipating that question, we did look, and so we compared, actually what was it, Crook County and Park number 1, which you guys are kind of in that same, and it's probably gonna be in that between 15 and 17,000 is what those particular districts are paying right now. So, somewhere in that
And it'd be
range.
to be much broader, if you look at that coverage comparison document, I know Terry said that you'll see all the various coverages that we include in the cyber, quote, so not just, the 500,000 for security breach, but $1 million in coverage for, let's see, let me highlight this real quick. I want to say it was like 17 different coverages, so probably about 24 different coverages, including with that ranging from third party suing you to identity theft, crime theft, HIPAA records, all that stuff being provided to you, business income loss, which doesn't really affect schools, but business income, extra expense, PCI, payment credit card industries, fines and assessments, phishing losses, security frauds. Comes with an online, besides Gallagher's online free trainings, and most of the insurance companies now are providing you with an online platform and an application. And the app is huge because what we found out with cyber claims, unfortunately, is when your network goes down, your claim reporting information stays in the proposal on your computer, and you can't get to it, you can't report a claim. So a lot of you are requiring you to download an app on your smartphone, whether it's the business managers or IT, or whoever wants to download it, and they'll send loss control information. They'll send some information you should be aware of, or hey, we're seeing emails that say this, be on the lookout for that. So it's a pretty sophisticated program by the carrier. We kind of help funnel all that information over to you.
And what Ryan's referring to, there was an Excel spreadsheet that did a couple of comparisons, and one of the points has the cyber insurance on there. All right. Any other questions that we can answer? All right. Again, we appreciate the opportunity to be here. As you go through this, if you have other questions, let Jamie know, and we'd be glad to answer what we can. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good morning.
Great.
Next, if we wanna have Ray from Ray Gallegos, I guess, I know you as Ray, but I should fully say.
You got Gallegos, which is better than most, so usually it's Gallegos, so thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, guys. I got good news for you. I'm probably not gonna waste that much more of your time, okay? I'm glad that they went over premiums, because we just got smoked, right? I will just say a couple things as we die on the hill here, most likely. You talk about longevity and stability and people around the state. I went back in our files, we've had you since 1999. That's as far back as we go. So it could have been before that. So never have we ran into a time since then, since I was 13, that we have not found coverage and that we faced a sharp non-renewal. But as good as I think I might be as a salesperson, there's no overcoming what just happened there, right? So that's a big thing. 50,000 per building is much preferable where you guys are at. I hate where our property insurance is at right now. I think it's gonna get better for you guys. 2019 is gonna drop off next year, and that's the Glendale hailstorms that hit auto and property real hard. And then, we got whacked with the collapse of the storage building in 21 too. So that was $780K in about 2 years. So that made it tough for us. But I think what was presented to you is, obviously probably best for your district from a financial standpoint. There's no sugar on that. We do have cyber quotes at $1 million across the board that we can provide you. I think Gladfelter's was about $13,500 for $1 million limit across the board. So we can still help you there. But yeah, any question? I mean, I'm not gonna really. I know where we're at on this, so.
Yeah. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
I've been there and there's nothing to do but say it's.
Yeah, well, I will say this, and I think it's kudos to Jamie. I think you got the best two in the room. I think between them and us, we insure 95% of the schools in the state. So you've got experts that are looking at this thing, and that's what you want. I don't do homeowners, I don't do farm and ranch, I do schools and colleges, and that's basically it. So we'll always be here to pick up the phone and, give you a comparative for what the private marketplace looks like. And answer any questions that you have, but I think what was presented is obviously in the best interest of the district. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, any questions or? Okay.
So I do have a question, so if for some reason, would that 13,000 stay our cyber, or is that if we have our property, or not our property, cause they're not with Gladfelter,
Yeah.
but do you have to include all of everything else to get that 13,000 for cyber?
Every year up until now, that answer would have been yes, but what Gladfelter did this year, they had like an embedded little training wheels of cyber, embedded for a long time, and that got kind of historically outdated because cyber claims actually started to pick up, right? So it wasn't just this cute little thing that was a buzzword, it was something that was paying out major dollars. So they took that and took it out of the educator's legal liability policy, and then they have a dedicated service now that quotes the cyber completely separate. So this is the first year that we would actually be able to pull it out. The rest of the time, I could always tell you what the premium was as a part of the package, but it would have to go with it. So we can place it separately in a long-winded way to answer you. I'm trying to chew up as much in 30 minutes as I can. All right, I know, you're like, this is insurance. But I'm not going anywhere either. I'm right down there in Cheyenne. If this thing doesn't go your way, we have pulled a few out of the pool in the last few years for individual reasons that those pools felt, that those districts thought that was their best interest. I'm not going anywhere. Family's here in Wyoming. I'm gonna be doing this for another 30 years, so I'll tell you, I'll be back in this room here down the road. Promise that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else, Jamie? I'm probably looking at you. You've probably got the good question. You've been digging into this, and she does a great job, you guys, I will say that. Business managers wear a lot of hats. There's one district in the state that has a risk manager that I'm aware of that just handles insurance. Everything else is on the business manager. Wears a lot of hats, does a great job understanding it. So you got a really good one, so I will give her some flowers.
We agree,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Greg.
yeah, you got it. All right, 25 minutes off the agenda. All right,
Thank you.
you got it.
Okay, so we all have that packet in our emails.
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
Dig into it. Again, ask Jamie if we have any questions.
Yeah.
Any questions, any discussion from you guys on insurance?
Had some conversations
Going once?
Stimulating conversation.
Some of us find it quite interesting.
Well, I'm sure we do.
And so glad we don't do school. Okay, all right, so next for the agenda. So we have two statements that the board would like to have prepared. One for when people contact us as a board. So I guess we'll do that one first, the public, board to stakeholders. So when the board receives an email that's addressed to all of us, I know we've talked about this for the year we've been on. How do we respond? Can we respond? Are we supposed to respond? What goes on? How do we do that? So we kind of had been talking, several of us, about coming up with a way, a response that would go out to every email or text, just to kind of to let everybody know, we hear you, we heard what you said, we're going to pass it along to the person that needs to know about it, and, an individual board member can't make a decision on anything or promise anything, unless we've met together and voted on it. So this is not to stop people from talking to individual board members. We still want that to happen, but we just wanted to have a response that would go out to everybody that contacts us as a board to let them know, we hear you, we've got your stuff, we're gonna forward it on to where it goes. So it would be the most effective use use of getting.
So to clarify, the business meeting is where that happens. But in the, when there's public comment in the business part of our meeting, right, is what you're
Well,
saying?
no, I'm talking just about this one first, and then we'll do
Email,
public
text.
Email,
Text.
oh, okay,
Yes.
alright.
And you had also mentioned in this first paragraph about advising to the chain of command,
Mm-hmm.
so that's good.
And so just as a place to start, and I know I missed something on here, now I can't remember what it was. I wanted to put something else in there, but this is just a starting point, so you guys, and please give us any feedback that you want. The board has received your comments and we thank you. As a reminder, the board as a whole cannot respond unless we have met and voted on the response. Individual members can talk to you but have no power other than to listen and advise on the chain of command. We appreciate you taking the time to reach out to us, and please know that each and every item is important to us. Our responses are limited by policy and statutes. You're welcome to call the superintendent or board chair about getting on the agenda.
Does that come from the board chair?
That, we need to decide that too, who's, so that one person is responding and it's not, like I said, I don't know how many conversations we've had about, oh, did you respond to that email? Are we supposed to respond to the email? Did we, because we get hammered all the time, you can't, you have to be so careful so that we're not overstepping our bounds as an individual board member and responding as the board. So I just wanted to clear that up a little bit, I guess. So thoughts, comments?
Well, I think that our individual emails are in there. I think we're going to be hearing individually from people. I think this is a great means to properly respond when that happens, but I don't think we should eliminate that kind of communication.
Oh, no, I don't wanna, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, no.
But you
I
were
think the
saying just
individual
one.
contact is really good, but when somebody wants to give us information as a whole, cause we get a lot, I've gotten texts and we've gotten emails that are mailed to the board as a whole, how do we respond to that?
Okay, I see.
And each person can respond individually, but as the board, we want the stakeholders to know we got it,
Yeah.
we hear you,
Yes.
and we're gonna pass it on. Generally, it would be passed on to Mr. Weigel because he's the chain of command, or he could get it to where it needs to go.
And so you're differentiating between an email that's sent to all of us as opposed to one that's just sent to me.
Correct, if one's just sent to you, that's between you and the stakeholder,
Right, but this would
communicate.
still be the recommended format.
No, I'm just talking about as a whole,
Okay,
when we
Alright.
receive them as a whole, an email or a text.
okay,
So on the individual basis, the individual, the accepted way to handle that would be finding out, like what we said, have you gone through the proper chain of command? Whatever the issue is, right? Unless it's something to us,
right, right,
personally. But, even our communication in between board members, in between each other, we have to be very careful about not responding in text, because then it starts to look like a meeting. We're not allowed to have meetings unless it's been properly advertised and, so it really is a kind of a logistical piece that needs to be understood, I guess.
I think the value of this does let someone know that you've received it,
Mm-hmm.
you've read through it, you've listened, you know what I mean? But then they know that, cause if no one responds,
right,
you're kind of at loss, like, did they even get it, did they,
Right.
did they read it? At least this gives the person sending it, hey, we got it, but,
Yeah.
the entire board, we're not gonna be able to respond to this.
right.
And we'd like to redirect you to maybe where that could be solved.
Right,
Yeah, redirecting.
I agree.
Cause
that
there's
the
even been
responses-
circumstances where people have said, well, I sent that to you, and I'm like, I didn't get it, you know, so there's always that too, you know, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if there's a pat way of going about it, then everybody understands this is how it's done, right?
Thoughts? Anybody?
I think it's a great way to respond to an email or a text that you guys get as a whole. Because then you're sending one message and it can't get confused. So I do think it's a good idea.
And
So
that's
there's no
the-
confusion.
Yeah, that's the other thing, one board member's not saying one thing and individually we can, cause we're individuals, we each have our own opinion, but as a board.
But it-
one,
And at the same time, you're recognizing, yes, I hear you, and we will
Right.
direct it to the appropriate person, whoever that may be. Whether it's a teacher, a principal, superintendent, businessman, whoever that may be.
Yeah, wherever it is.
They know you've seen it.
Mhm.
So then the question of, well, I didn't see it becomes a non-issue.
Right.
So I do think it's good.
It's honoring to respond.
And I think sometime, in the last year, I know I have been neglecting responding to everything because I just get so scared, am I supposed to, you know, we get hammered on, you can't do that, you can't do this, so.
So that's kind of clear, is that something that, you know, we'll be putting maybe like on the website? Kind of to let everybody know that here's the thing, I mean, maybe wouldn't hurt. I don't know, you know, as far as our policies go, I think it's been covered in policy, right?
Has it? I don't know that it has been. Dustin, do you know of a policy that talks about email responses? I don't remember reading that one.
I think there's some vague language in there, I don't think it actually spells it out.
Of course, that's probably more
Yeah.
how the board interacts with each other, right?
Yeah.
I think I'd probably state this in the next board meeting, just so it's clear, so you have it recorded here, and then next board meeting, you would do the same kind of thing, you would just read this, maybe during the communication or the community part of it, that would be a good place to put it.
Is this a-
Communication
This is just board consensus, we don't have to have board
No,
approval on it.
No, you can have discussion even if
Right,
you share it.
right, well, and you know, we've got a couple of board members not here, three not here this evening, so they're gonna look at the tape and
Mhm.
also
But they-
probably,
They all have a copy of this as well.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah. Just to get that clarity, you're right, Shannon, you know, and just so everybody kind of is on the same page and that, you know, good communication is where we wanna be.
Okay,
Can you read it one more time, Sean, or Lou?
the board has received your comment and we thank you. As a reminder, the board as a whole cannot respond unless we have met and voted on the response. Individual members can talk to you but have no power other than to listen and advise on the chain of command. We appreciate you taking the time to reach out and please know that each and every item is important to us. Our responses are limited by policy and statute. I'll clean that language up, or the grammar up. You are welcome to call the superintendent or board chair about getting on the agenda. That probably needs a little, I don't know, but.
Well, and you're gonna wanna say by the Monday prior to a board meeting, or, you know, wherever you,
Yeah,
so that it's clear when they have to connect with you or John prior to.
Right.
Because if they wait till Wednesday of the board meeting, prior to the board meeting, they would be too late.
Yeah.
They'd have to wait till the next month.
It's good.
Yeah, which by rights, one of the reasons that we put, you know, the agendas out is so that everybody knows
Right.
what's on the agenda and, you know, like in our board trainings that we've gone through, WSBA has been pretty clear on, you know, our business meeting is a meeting held in the public, but it's not necessarily a public meeting.
Correct.
Meaning that there are certain business items we have to take care of it, you know, and you have to keep the flow going. So, that's a good suggestion to make sure that people understand if they do wanna be on the agenda, their time frame to do so.
Can it also say something about, I will look into it, I will do research, I will inform myself? Because sometimes it feels like it's just pushing it off to someone else when you say chain of command. That's what the common people think. Well, you're just shoving it off to somebody else and you're not really looking into it or asking those questions to follow up. I don't know how you wanna word that, but
Yeah, and we can, that's a very good point, I hear what you're saying. We just, and as I'm looking at this here, in an email, it's fine, but in the text, that's gonna be a really long,
Right.
so we really need to make it a little bit more condensed.
Or you could send an email, say, do you have an, a text and say, do you have an email that
Email
would,
and then
I
just-
could send the response, then it might, I don't know, that's up to you,
Yeah.
how you guys wanna do that, but.
just something about, I will look into it, I will inform myself, I will
Well, here's what I think,
ask questions, I don't know.
where it says getting on the agenda, it depends on what the topic is, you might not get on the agenda. So it seems to me we should say, you're welcome to call the superintendent or board chair about next steps. So if it's a personnel issue, you might join during the executive session. So I think getting on the agenda might not be appropriate, depends on what the issue is.
I was just gonna say.
Right, so what's the next step?
Whether
Next
it's
step might be
operational versus
research.
strategic.
Yeah, it might be, hey, we have a board meeting coming up in 2 weeks. The next step is gonna be, we're gonna invite you or whoever into executive session. So I don't know if we wanna kinda focus in on just the agenda, how about next steps? Cause there could be a lot of,
Yeah, there's so
go in a different
many,
direction, yeah.
so many
And
variables.
it might take a little time too, it might be a pretty complicated issue, it might take a little more time.
Which that kind of helps with the next steps,
Yeah.
asking questions, informing myself, doing my research.
Exactly.
Well, it might even be hearing both sides in executive session.
And it could be something they're bringing up that's already been decided and there's something and you can be able to communicate. This has already been this and this is the precedence here.
Yeah, true. I do like that. Okay, so the end will just be about next steps, I like that. Okay. I don't think that.
And the reality of the situation though really is that the board has their job, but admin has their job. Super has his job or her job, which, however. There are some things that aren't necessarily like our job, right? I mean, personnel, et cetera, those are touchy subjects because, you can't, there's law to that,
But your board policies do outline due process.
Due process, yeah.
Okay, so with a few tweaks, I think we'll
Get there on that one?
get there on that one. Okay, and then the next one is on the visitor comments, and I know we've had discussions for a while, over the last year that we've been here. At different times, we've had some board meetings. We have the public participation board meeting policy, which is BBDH, also KD, so, and there are copies on the table out there if anybody wanted one. And in no way do we ever want to stifle public participation in board meetings. That is not what this is for. This is, what we're going to do is try to just make it efficient, make the public comment efficient, like we had, I think as I was telling a stakeholder last night, I think we've had at least 3 board meetings with visitor comments that have been not totally pleasant, let's just put it that way. And it happens. So, we talked about it a little bit at our state convention, the board state convention, and then we've also talked to our legal counsel. That even though our policy says we have up to 30 minutes, it does not mean that any one person or two people, we have to divide that equally amongst whoever is there to talk. We do have the right to limit the time frame for our visitor comments. Joe brought his notes, but I didn't.
So we can, make a change and say 3 minutes or 5 minutes, even though it says in policy?
Our policy, according to our legal, Scott, our legal representative, Scott, yes, we have that flexibility to do that the way that the policy is written. Does everybody have a copy of it?
I
That
can,
one's one?
I can read that paragraph. If
Okay.
several people wish to speak, each person may be allowed an equal portion of time until 30 minutes is used.
But if you read the first paragraph, it says, in order for the board to fulfill its obligation to complete the planned agenda in an effective and efficient fashion, public participation will be permitted, but may be limited at each meeting. So it was, and I don't know if it was purposefully written that way, but
Okay.
it is vague enough to give us, and it passes legal muster by,
Okay.
if we do, because a couple of reasons that this has come up. One is, in public participation, if we have a visitor comment and there's, again, going back to what the board can and cannot do, we can't interact with a visitor.
Right.
By state statute and by policy, we're not allowed to do that. And so it becomes, it's not efficient in furthering anybody's, getting to the root of the problem, which goes back to what we just talked about, what are the next steps? And so if we limit our visitor comments to a 2 to 3 minute concise, this is the issue, this is what's, whatever, then we can direct it to the proper, again, to the proper place and make sure that like this is what we had gotten that I haven't read, but you gave me this a while ago about making sure that we hear you as the visitor, but now we're gonna put that on to the proper person, and we're gonna direct either the board chair, the superintendent, business manager, whoever it is, to contact you tomorrow morning and let's talk about next steps or whatever. The visitor comment section is really not the best place to find a solution because we can't do anything. There's a
Well,
couple others.
basically, it can't be tried via public opinion. I mean, really, it's not the way to, it's not how to do things, right?
Right, and there's a lot of different reasons, I lost that train of thought, so if somebody has a thought, bring it.
I was just gonna comment, so Dustin, when we had the meeting in Chubwater,
Yes,
we had
ma'am.
like 20 some odd people who wanted to speak. We were gonna go over 30 minutes and nobody would really get enough time, so what Dustin opted,
Yep.
correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
What Dustin opted to do is he gave everybody 2 minutes, and there wasn't one person who hit their 2-minute time limit, at that Chubwater meeting. And I thought that was appropriate because
It was.
everyone got to have their say,
Mhm.
but no one, you know what I mean? But it was still respectful of everybody's time as well, instead of everyone,
Yes, ma'am, we opted to extend, even though we really didn't need to.
you didn't need to, but
That was okay.
I don't think you
We
went
took
over
care
the
of that
30
on the
minutes,
front
cause
end.
no one used their 2
That's good.
minutes. so
That's good.
just something to throw
Yeah.
out there.
Right,
So that was one of the meetings that we did, the board did kind of tweak the amount of time offered out.
Right.
And it does go on after, in the same paragraph that I began reading, it says the period of public participation may be extended by a vote of the majority of the board.
Right.
And that took place
Yep.
in that situation. Yeah.
and the other thing that we want to make people aware of is we can't, like you had said, especially with personnel, thank you. My train is not running well tonight. With personnel issue, the board again is very limited on that, and state statute, board policy, most of that needs to be done in executive session. So just to protect the commenter and the commentee, if it is something about that needs to be done in executive session. And again, just for us to be able to handle problems that are being presented to us, just needs to be short, concise, let's talk about next steps, let's meet tomorrow, so. Thoughts?
I think personnel, you can't address, individual board members, administrators, teachers, students, coaches, all those things are personnel, and that's not the intent of that public comment.
Right.
So anything in personnel needs to be stopped, we're not gonna listen to personnel, this isn't the place for it, if you wanna meet the board chair individually,
Right.
we can do that and talk about next steps, but in general, personnel isn't gonna be allowed to talk, cause this isn't the right place for it.
So we need to put that in there, so there is, I have started a comment on there that we will be, although this one is probably, that we will be using at visitor comments, and I don't know what is, the time limit on it, so to speak. It's been proposed at 3 minutes, you can pretty much say anything you want in 3 minutes, whether there's one person or 5 people there or 10 people. What are your guys' thoughts about that?
Well, there are times when we just have so much to cover in the meeting, that it would make it difficult to not kind of have a basic guideline, like when you've got 2 pages of things to go through, that was already on the agenda. So anything additional, is difficult to get through. And it's not an issue of being rude or not caring or not wanting to hear.
Right.
It's just that there are times when we just have to finish the business that we have to do, so that's just all there is to it.
It does seem like, with all of our discussion that, can we make changes to BDDH?
And we wouldn't be making changes to it, it's the legal interpretation that we have the wiggle room to.
Right, but I think it will be confusing for anyone who would look at this. That's why I suggest that we make some changes with the wording in there.
Does the Wyoming
It's not
School
too
Board
difficult.
Association have one? Or is this one already based off of the Wyoming
It
School Board
is.
Associations? Cause that would be what was recommended by them, if it's based off of the Wyoming School Board Association, I guess that's what I would look at first.
So the legal references are here in the cross-reference.
Okay. And if that's binding, but we are making suggestions for some changes that I think would be good to be conveyed on here, if we can.
John?
It says it can be extended, but it doesn't say reduced.
Right.
First
But
it
it-
says it can be limited.
At the top
Yeah.
sentence, it says it can be, public participation will be permitted but may be limited at each meeting.
The first
Clarify
paragraph.
that.
Diane, I think your keyword in there is may.
Mhm.
And you could do like you guys are gonna do with that letter, you could, like John was talking about going over the letter just in the meeting on Monday, you could also clarify this policy and I don't know, it's up to you guys, but you could clarify
It's
the
pretty
policy.
standard, like other districts, 3 minutes is pretty standard, I'm not aware of anybody that goes past 3 minutes.
Okay,
And I do think there's flexibility in here.
okay,
You can
I
extend it,
I
you
would
can limit
agree.
it, it says may, this depends.
Yeah.
And there might be something where you need to extend it, just like maybe some of the things Sharon talked about. Like 30 minutes isn't enough, right? So we have something that we wanna hear public comment on, and we need to hear more than one person, it
Yeah.
might take a while.
Yeah.
Right,
That might be-
so limiting yourself at that point might not be the best idea.
But I think you can limit or you can extend, that's the nice part about this policy. It's
Keeping it a little bit more, I
So you
guess,
think
for a,
wording is
yeah.
clear.
When I first came, it was kinda interesting to say, it depends who shows up, right? You should get more time because you're only one, or you're one of 10, you know what I mean, that was kind of the weird part,
I
that
think
gives
that was the.
the
Yeah.
board that opportunity to extend or say, you know, within 3 minutes, you can tell us what you're thinking in terms of maybe the operations of the school, but
Right.
that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, and I've seen that in the last 3 years, you know, that concept. You can take my time, go ahead, keep talking. So. So that is the general understanding, I think, among many. So we will, I agree that we need to communicate this, maybe. I think it's great
And this might be a
suggestion.
standing one, maybe this is when you do it every meeting, you
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
in the comment, here's kind of
I like it,
the
Do we need
guidelines
to
moving
move it?
forward, just to remind you, because maybe you do it now and then 6 months from now, you know, people, it's not clear.
Right.
it's good.
Well, I think that's one more thing about making the expectations and letting people know
Yeah.
what just
I do
being
think,
as transparent as
I
possible.
do think the public's not going to know what they can and can't talk about.
Right,
Because I've been here for 20 years and I know for a fact that there have been things talked about that you're saying you're not supposed to talk about.
Correct.
So I'm just saying, 20 years' time, and now we're gonna change this and the public's not gonna know why or what we can. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm just saying from a public standpoint,
and
a
that's why I
stakeholder
wanna
standpoint.
clarify it, that's why I wanted,
That's true.
because,
Right.
you know, whoever's watching this and whoever's watching the meeting, hopefully we can get words out, but we needed to clarify it and come to a consensus of what it means to us.
Right.
Now, as far as limiting it or extending it, again, Scott, our attorney, has looked at this and said we have no issue
Good.
limiting it to
That's
3
good.
minutes.
Yeah.
He did reference, when I talked to him, he referenced a very recent decision out of Sheridan 2, where it happened during COVID, and they had public comments, and the public comments were talking about personnel. They were going directly after the board and directly after the super and the principals for masks and things like that. They were asked to stop talking and to sit down or to be escorted out. The visitors actually sued the district for infringement of First Amendment rights. The school district won that suit because of what John was talking about. There are things that you can talk about in public in a public in the board meeting, and things that you cannot, and with your policy saying it can be limited, you can't talk about personnel, you can't do all of those things. And it was upheld by the federal district court too. So that's a fine line where you get First Amendment rights, but also not crossing the line into those things that shouldn't be talked about, you know, that have their own separate ways or places to talk about. So there is legal precedent for limiting.
So that might be the chain, Chrissy, you're talking about, maybe before there wasn't any of that court case kind of showing districts what you can and can't do in terms of public comment, so that's probably the biggest change
The
moving
big
forward.
difference.
Right, no,
That is
I-
allowed, so
I
that
agree.
probably answers your
Right, I'm just saying,
comment.
It has been that way, and you know, we are really working on a different culture than what we've had. We really want a culture of honor, and I think that this is gonna help to maintain a better culture of honor in the public.
Well,
We had
and so then just putting this maybe on the comment sheet, then also every single meeting, being able to clarify it and talk with, whoever's thinking about talking would solve quite a bit of it, don't you think? I don't know, just curious.
So I have something that's specifically about personnel, where there's somebody, well, what if they're not bashing somebody, but they're trying to give a compliment? That is kind of the catch-22 with you can't talk about personnel too. So how can that be clarified?
That would probably need to come before and be put into good news section.
Yeah, there you go, that's the best place for it, yeah.
Because we do
You could come in
address
back into personnel, it's just the opposite side, usually personnel's something negative or complaining, but you could use that on the other end, trying to, you know what I mean, so I think that,
But
I
you're
like
getting
that.
permission from the person prior, because they usually know if they're being acknowledged, right? I mean, so if FFA brings their kids in or whatever, they know that that's happening. There's no surprises there.
And I'm trying to think of somebody came up and visitor comments said, hey, I just wanna give a shout out to my
I've done
great
it.
teacher.
Shannon.
I've done it before for last year for coaches, cause coaches in this district have done a phenomenal job. I can't name one coach who hasn't done a phenomenal job for my kids. So last year I did do a shout out at a board meeting for coaches. Didn't know I couldn't, so.
That might need some clarification too.
Yeah.
Scott, just
The other
just
side
say,
of
yeah,
it.
so
Mhm.
what does that look like, and so we can explain it, the expectations, personnel means what, right?
Well, because no matter what, we wanna do the right thing across the board.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, probably you, that's what I'm thinking, but it'd be good that he shares out.
Yeah.
I like putting it on any kind you sign up for, plus every time you have public comment, you state it again, make it concise and very clear, so then everybody understands the expectations. If you run into something, you ask them to stop. If they say some things that are inappropriate, we can remove that from the actual meeting recording, cause they're not following our expectations.
Well, I know a lot of board meetings are, if your comment isn't specific to an agenda item, you shouldn't bring it up either. And I don't know how everybody feels about that.
What's your experience with that, Dustin, over the years? About an item somewhat related to the agenda?
Not all that great.
It hasn't been followed.
But
Yeah.
it's the hardest thing to do because you have to be able to read the crowd, right? And so sometimes you just don't know what's coming. The conversation may start and it's more of a kind of a conversation, or they're just, expressing an opinion or making a general comment, and then here comes something out of left field. It's like, wow, that's entertaining. Okay, now what? But, do you allow it to continue? Do you allow it to shut it down? Then now you're starting to second guess everything you're doing up there as far as, okay, do I need to drop the gavel here and stop some stuff, or do we just kind of let it go? Let everybody get a clearer head? Or are we talking about going into recess real quick and kind of resetting everything, So it's different.
Cause you were participating in the whole COVID thing, which was
Oh,
such
yeah.
an emotionally
Oh, yeah.
charged.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, and, this is also a venue of elected officials and representative elected folks, and, sitting out there in the audience are the folks who put us here, and do they have the right to speak? So you have to balance a few of those
Yeah.
things as well. What I'm seeing necessarily with current policy on station is, it was written in 1997 and actually adopted in 1998 in January, and it was last reviewed in October of 2011. So I've got up the WSBA policy manual, they call it policy KDF. And
So that's what
it's another 3 paragraphs in there, it's just kind of a model. Actually, the 3rd paragraph in that would go a long ways to clarify a lot of this as well. So I think I would agree with Diane is kind of need to update this or take the best of that and the best of this and slam them together and bring a new policy review into the realm, but,
Do you know if this is on the schedule?
What does it say?
I'll have to look at that, but we can check it, we can put it where it's information first and second, we can put that on for Monday. Does it talk about personnel?
no. So this is actually more about, so it kind of paraphrases a little bit of this, is to achieve orderly meetings, the board may regulate the conduct of the public. And if any meeting is willfully disrupted by a person or groups of persons, the board in the course of it may order the removal, blah, 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 blah. You may recess the meeting and reconvene in another location, so that's at a different level. It talks about board chairman's responsibility for recognizing all speakers, who they properly identify themselves, and some of those are still going. Questions asked by the public shall, when possible, be answered immediately by the chairman or referred to staff members present for reply. That's entirely at the chairman's discretion. Questions regarding the investigation will be referred to the board administrative. That is the weirdest word I've ever seen. Shall be referred to the board of administrative staff. I've never seen that ever. That's odd. I would say cross the word board out there, referred to the administrative staff for consideration and later response. That makes a little more sense. But then it goes on to talk about recognized by the chairman as the board conducts its official business except when the board schedules in advance on a particular agenda item. So there's some language in there to glean out of there. I think it's more of just some things thrown out there to see what might stick from the WSBA's perspective here, but I think with what we have on this sheet and a little bit of language off of that, I think we can grab the intent and get this to clarify a little more. On the old policy here, each person addressing the board will give his name and address. Really? We haven't done that for years.
But you can't do that
Years
now,
and years and years.
right? I don't think you can do that.
No, so
But most of
by
them don't.
practice, we have done it by affiliation.
Yeah.
So there's any.
So are you a parent, are you,
Even if they're not
Community
in the
member.
district, they can still.
So Mr. Wackel, was this one assigned to one of the
I don't have that
subcommittees?
list in front of me, we can check, I don't think it didn't pop up in anything. It didn't pop up on ours, so.
It wasn't
I was just
in my
curious.
group, I don't think.
It's
But we
not,
can
I
bring
don't,
it
I
up.
think we have one from each group, so it was not in
It's not on
mine.
ours.
It wasn't in
How
mine.
about having
Wasn't in
little-
yours, it wasn't
We
in
got
yours.
lower down.
But we can bring it in for
Was it-
information.
was it in yours?
If we want to modify it,
Yeah.
sure, that's a.
I think you look at it and
Okay,
see.
so
Kind
but
of
I-
together, but I can't remember.
I was gonna say, I know it wasn't in mine.
on the WSBA website, where did you find that?
Actually, this
Should I
is
go get it? Oh, let me go get it.
Yeah.
I'll go back now.
Personnel and.
here,
Let me go look in now, so I'll get it.
Oh, it's in our.
I have my thing too, Chad.
I
I have my packet right here.
That was like a month ago.
I know my too.
Did you send me the link, will you?
shared with us. Yeah,
I don't
I
know,
can't remember,
Maybe
I
I've
submitted,
not
but we
put it
did.
in my little
So he
backpack.
has
Yeah,
there you go.
it could be, yes.
whatever you call that.
Plus mine's 1920, so
We
probably need to
It
update
looks
on
like
that
every
too.
single one.
We weren't
That's
excited.
on ours, we didn't cover it.
Okay.
Then you and myself and
And that's
Leslie,
what I
yeah.
figured it would be,
They
okay,
did.
so we need to
Which is appropriate
pull that out.
for them.
Okay, so I'm thinking that, since it does need to be a policy review, and policy reviews have to go from our subcommittee to the committee to board to first, second reading, all of that. We'll clarify until we get that one, and even going forward, we'll just clarify the purpose of the visitor comment.
Okay, sounds good.
We should do it
Every
every
time.
time anyway,
Yeah.
really.
I do think the first thing you talked about, how, group emails are being addressed now, or that coming up with a possible solution even at that level might eliminate the need for someone to come during public comment because nobody responded or they don't feel like anything's being done.
Right.
At least, so that could start that way before it even gets to the public comment, and then when there's next steps, that could resolve itself, that's what I think.
Yeah.
And that wasn't in place before.
Right.
You're
Well,
right,
yeah.
I'm sorry, you're right.
So,
Cause I know.
and it's
you-
not that we would want to blow anybody off either, you know,
I
it's
I
not like that, it's just, you don't know what you don't know, so you just go. It's the deer in the
I mean,
headlight, look.
I know this probably stems from me, I get it, I get it.
No, it's
And I
not
know
all
that,
of it.
and it's fine, but
No, not all of it,
I know,
100%.
I know.
We
But
had
You
some
brought it to
bumbles,
the forefront.
90%.
we had
Brought it
some
to the
bumbles and
forefront.
some painful situations, you know, when we were discussing some things with Chugwater and
Right.
you know, so, no, any opportunity that the board can have to learn, I think that, you know, we'll own it and look, we're learning,
And I am too,
so
That's what
it's
I'm-
good, yeah. We all become better when we can
Work
communicate
session
and,
April twenty-fifth,
work through it,
2022 comes
right?
ringing real quick to my mind.
Oh, yeah,
yeah, so.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
ma'am.
I know that one too, because I was there.
Yes, ma'am.
As I lovingly refer to it as the start of the debacle. Or the debacle, from my perspective.
well, we're just learning,
Okay, so
it's good.
we're going to, policy committee will work on BDDH, see if there needs any cleanup, and then we'll just be very clear at every public meeting about visitor comments before and during.
And then just make a note that, so he said that was KBF. Yeah, I don't know if you put it
Yeah,
down.
WSBA's policy.
In WSBS. I mean, it always helps to refer to something that's already been tried, right, and true, yeah.
Josh, you got something?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention BDDH, it says also KD, we don't have a policy KD listed in our,
That's,
And I think that might
That's
be
the
the KBF from
WSBA
the, so I never
reference.
knew why it was there.
So we have it in our group, but we found that there was no policy, so when we meet as a whole, we'll go through that as a summary.
Yeah.
So we might find that other places.
so I don't know if we added as a
You will.
policy, and I don't know if we added KD and it was.
no, I'm sure that's
eliminated
referring to
somewhere,
the
or
WSBA,
it's-
because that's the one that crosses over to, right?
no,
You said KD.
KD something.
I think that they
Those
were,
were put in there as
Which we just said it was KD,
Right.
yeah.
So I think
There's
it
no
was dropped.
we don't have a KD
So
listed.
something was
Well,
changed.
that's
Right.
where
Yeah.
it's located.
So there's another piece to
and that's
this
where-
policy that's tied to, that's not currently listed in our
So-
board policies.
That's missing, MIA.
Well, we were reducing policies and it was probably one of the policies that got reduced, but
Yeah.
the reference never was taken out of the BDAH policy is probably what happened.
that's what I
So
think.
the,
So
so
now
the
you
B
could add-
section, yeah.
Just do the whole thing.
So the B section is about board operations, and the Ks are usually public participation. And so these two things mirror each other in two locations. And so it's like, yeah, it doesn't really.
So it was like double
this is-
coverage.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
so part of the
And we tried to get rid
290
of
some
some of those,
policies.
we had so many.
I remember, yeah, that was being taken.
So when we
place.
redo
Yeah.
BDDH, we can eliminate that also KB
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Just strike through that. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think
Or
so.
slash.
Okay,
We felt it was more important to keep it in the board operations rather than.
Okay, I got you.
okay, alright, I think we have a plan for moving forward.
Alright,
Anything else?
is everybody excited for their travel plans? Going anywhere fun? I'm not.
Alright, well, thank you all for coming and with that,